everyone, and thank you for joining today's webinar. This is Webinar Wednesday for SOLIDWORKS Inspection and Model-Based Definitions, MBD, and this is developing an inspection lifecycle using 3D PMI from drawings all the way to the FAI reports. My name is Scott Woods. I'm the product manager for our Tech Comms products here at Hawk Ridge Systems, and today we're going to be switching gears a little bit, going more into a little bit more educational presentation, just going over how we can take PMI data at the SOLIDWORKS part level and then using that data, pushing it to both inspection and also model-based definitions. And then keep in mind, there's many different ways of pushing that data out. So when you have dimensions, notes, annotations, that sort of stuff at the model level, you can reference that data in your 2D drawings. You can reference that data in model-based definitions for like PDF outputs, e-drawing outputs. There's also a lot of other uses for that, such as like a step 242 file, which we can export from model-based definitions. And that file has readable data in the step file, and so you can share that with vendors or something like that, and they could open it up and say, oh, this is the dimensions, this is how things are put together. So there's a lot of benefits for putting that PMI data right in the model level. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started here. So first off, let's talk about DimXpert. So if you're unfamiliar with DimXpert, most of you probably already have it today, right in SOLIDWORKS. So it comes, it's a SOLIDWORKS product. It's built into SOLIDWORKS, and that allows you to create dimensions, annotations, notes right on a part, right within the CAD software itself. Now, both inspection and model-based definitions can utilize this data in order to create their outputs. So really, most of the stuff I showed today, you'll be able to do already, even if you don't own inspection or model-based definitions. And then if you ever choose to go that route, you'll already be 80% of the way there, sort of thing. Now, another thing we need to touch on is annotation views. So this is something that has been in SOLIDWORKS for a very long time. It's just not something a lot of people are aware of because it's pretty much automated. But what happens is that when you create anything in 3D, I should say in a 3D space, anything 2D in a 3D space, you're creating that on an annotation view or an annotation plane, even if you don't realize that that's what's happening. And depending on what plane it's on or what view it's on, so if it's on like the front or the back or the top, the bottom, left, right, or a custom annotation view, those will show up differently in the outputs, and it can be a little bit confusing, but we'll try to sum that up here today to show you exactly how to control that. And then we're going to take that PMI data that's in the 3D model, push it to a 2D drawing, and just keep in mind that when the dimensions live in the model, we can just use that in many different outputs. So let's go ahead and jump into SOLIDWORKS, and then we'll get into inspection model-based definitions next. Okay, so now I'm in SOLIDWORKS CAD, and here I'm going to isolate a model and then start working on the 3D PMI at the part level. So let's go ahead and choose this guy here. A lever, and it's just a good prismatic part that we can show some details on. So going to the bottom left of the viewport here, you'll see where it says 3D views. By clicking on that, you'll see this area where we can actually add 3D views. Now if I go and say I want to capture 3D view, I can actually start creating my model-based definitions views of this. I can also use this to drive my inspection from SOLIDWORKS and then push that out to the inspection standalone application. Keep in mind, both model-based definitions and inspections are additional purchases, as those don't come automatically with SOLIDWORKS. So a lot of the things you see me do today, you will have to have those applications in order to do everything. But when I start working in sketches in DimXpert, that is something you can do today. So here, let's go ahead and capture some 3D views. I'm just kind of pre-setting this up for both other model-based definitions and inspection. So let me go to front view. I also want to change my rendering style, so something like that. And this is just my personal preference, just so I can see the hard edges and get an idea of what it looks like. It also looks more like a 2D drawing, even though I'm still in 3D space. So I'm going to capture a 3D view. I'm going to choose my annotation views. I always select the notes area. That way if I ever want to put notes later on, they'll show up. But since this is a front view, I'm going to choose that front annotation view so I can get the dimensions that are on that front view. And that will make more sense here in a minute once I actually talk about annotation views. So we'll choose that, say yep, and I'll develop that. And this is just a real quick, just like creating the templates. Let's go to a left view, something like that, and we'll capture that. And we'll just say we want the left. I don't need the front annotation view anymore, and we'll capture that. Then also let's do a top. So there's the top view. We'll go and capture that, and we'll go ahead and say the top annotation plane for that as well. Also, I want to do kind of an isometric rendered view. I like setting these up in the 2D drawing, so I'm going to set this up in the 3D space as well. So something like that. And we're going to capture that, and let's go ahead and say that we want to capture all annotations for this guy. Why not? We can delete them later. That's the big thing to remember when working in your So that's the big thing to remember when working in 3D space, that you can create a bunch of data, a bunch of annotations. You don't have to use them all. It's kind of like, you know, it's kind of like too much data is good because you can always delete, but it's harder to add it later. And if you add it later outside of the model space, then it doesn't exist here for other outputs. So let's go ahead and create that. Now I got my isometric view there. And so now I'm going to go ahead and start dimensioning this model. So I have model-based definitions installed, so I'm going to go ahead and use these tools here to dimension it out. If you don't have model-based definitions already, go to DimXpert tab here. You'll see a lot of the same tools that I'm going to use now. The biggest difference is if you have model-based definitions, you can use a lot of these tools at the assembly level. If you don't have model-based definitions, you can only do DimXpert at the part level. So that's the big difference between the two. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into here, and I want to start creating some dimensions. So what I found is these tools, we're working in a 3D space and we're creating dimensions. So a lot of dimensions that you can do in a 2D space, as in a 2D drawing, is a little bit more difficult to do in a 3D space unless you know some tricks. So I'll go ahead and show what I've come up with to really get a lot of those dimensions. So first off, I mostly use the Smart Dimension tool. This gives me access to a few of the presets, and I can just thumb through these to use them. So for instance, if I say, you know, a location dimension, and I want like that hole, I can choose that hole. I can choose like this face to dimension from that location, and then I go ahead and set my annotation there. Also, if you go back to Smart Annotation, Smart Dimension, I can go here and I can say, you know, DimXpert Size Dimension, and I can select that hole there. Also, there's an option here to create a compound hole. So I can go and I can select the additional hole, so it actually will create the annotation on both of those. And I got that guy there, so it's a through hole. You know, I want to point out another little tip here as well. See how this annotation is at an angle? I mean, that's fine, and that's the default. I like to have everything horizontal or vertical because once we get into inspection, it's easier to run inspection on that dimension if you're not automating that from SOLIDWORKS. If you're running that from an OCR tool, like the inspection standalone application, it does work better if it's horizontal. It just saves an extra step there. You don't have to turn it. So here I'm going to go to leaders. Let's go custom text position, and I just want to choose this guy right there to flatten it out, and then maybe just kind of align it with the other dimension just so it looks good. Okay. Now at any time I can update my views. You know what? One thing I didn't point out is if you right-click a dimension. Get off that tool. So if you right-click a dimension, you see where it says Set Annotation View. You can set these to different annotation views. I want to set that to the front because that's the annotation view that I have my front view set to. Click this guy. You see it's already on front, so we're good to go. Now I select this view here, and I'm going to right-click Recapture View. It's going to recapture what I'm seeing here. Hit the checkbox, and you'll see it updates. Now I can go to any of these other views. That one captured everything, if you remember we set that up, but these guys don't. And I go back here, and it's going to be there like that. Okay, so I'm going to do one more dimension using DimXpert, and then I want to show how we can take a sketch dimension, or sketch dimensions, and push those to both model-based definitions and inspection. So here, let's go back to Smart Dimensions. It's just my preferred way of making dimensions. And I'll say, let's do the location at work, and we'll go from there to there. And we'll drop down a dimension from those two faces. You also see it throws the tolerances in there. That's just based off of our standards, so you can go ahead and adjust those in the options if you wanted to. We can also adjust these in the inspection standalone application as well. If you wanted to adjust those later, we can use custom tolerances there at that point. Okay, so with that said, I'm going to go ahead and capture this view again, and at any time you can just recapture just to kind of keep your views updated in case I needed to switch to another view and I need to get this back exactly where I'm looking at. So now let's go ahead and create a sketch plane. So I'm going to say front plane here. I'm going to go ahead and create a sketch. Now we got the sketch plane that we can start creating dimensions. And this is just another like tip and trick. It's a kind of a way that I've discovered to dimension in 3D space that works really well. This isn't going to work for all situations, but if you use the point command here, and I say I want from that point to that point, I already have an overall, so I'm going to skip that one, and let's just kind of go down the line here and grab my major points like that. And all that does is it gives me nice anchor points where I can attach my dimensions. And I use my Smart Dimension tool to just go ahead and throw some dimensions from, go from that point there to that point there. And let's go from here to here, something like that. And we'll do the last one right here like that. Again, the tolerances we can throw into inspection later. So this is one of those tips that I think makes watching these presentations worth it. Those little tiny things you find out that can save you hours of troubleshooting later. So you'll see that my sketch is hidden, and I want those dimensions, I want to be able to use them in my later outputs. If you go to Annotations and right click, you should first of all, there's feature dimensions, and that's going to show the sketch that I have, then also all the features dimensions for this view. Now that's what I was saying at the beginning, that sometimes you do this and you get more information than you need. More is better than not enough. We can always remove these or not show these later. So I'm going to go ahead and just use that. I'm going to throw in the view here. We can just pull them out later. But basically we want to go ahead and make sure that these are shown. Also reference annotations, that's a big one too. If we did have reference dimensions, you would want to make sure that is also checked in order to see those. And you know what, I'm going to go ahead and hide. I said I wasn't going to hide these, but let me do it anyways. I'm going to clean it up here so I just don't have to clean it up as much later. And that's just basically right clicking and hiding the dimensions I don't want. Okay, so there we go. So now we have our dimensions displayed that we want displayed. And I'm going to go ahead and right click and recapture that view like that. Now if I go to any of these other views that don't display the front annotation view, those annotations aren't going to be shown. Something like that. Let me get them here. Okay, I think the last thing I want to show at the part level is how we can create a cut configuration and display that in our captured 3D views down here. We can use that in many other places later. You can also use configurations to like increase the size, remove fillets, or show different iterations of the design. For this case, we're just going to do a cut, keep it simple. So look at this design, and I see that there's this cutaway here. I don't really have those dimensions specified anywhere, and I could show a top view with hidden lines visible and dimension those out, or I can cut it, and it might be a lot easier to show that. So I'm going to go ahead and let's do this. Let's go to a back view so we can see where we want to cut it. And in my standard SOLIDWORKS configurations, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create a new configuration. So let's create a new configuration. And we'll call this cut. For lack of a better name here. And let's create a cut. So from here we go. And again, this is not best practices here. I'm just going to create a box. I should probably create some dimensions and offset that or whatever. But for demonstration purposes, we're just going to cut it through. Something like that. So now I got this configuration of this cut where now I have these edges visible where I can create some nice dimensions. So with that, I'm just going to go to my top view, and again, I'll remove these guys later, or I could remove them now. By the way, I could also hide the annotations out of my annotation pane here, that way I don't have them displayed at all, but we'll just do that to hide them. Easy enough. And now I have these nice solid edges where I can create this new view. So now that I have this top view that's cut, I say capture 3D view, I get that, and you'll see if I go to these other annotation views, they're not going to show the configuration of the cut. They're referencing a different configuration. They're referencing configuration 2, which is the default there. And then if I go here, this is referencing the configuration cut. And so now I can go ahead and I create my dimensions, do sketch dimensions and whatnot of this cut here. Okay, so let's go ahead and use DimXpert to go ahead and measure this cut out here. So again, I'm going to use my smart dimensions, use the location that works, and we'll go from here to here. And actually, this is a really good example of annotation view. You'll see how I'm trying to place this. I'm actually in the top view. It's wanting to place it, I think, on the front annotation view, which is not going to show in my top view, which is a problem. So once I place it, just right click, you'll see it placed it on the annotation view front, click on that, and I say set to top. And now I get that annotation in my top annotation view, so I can display it in my top 3D view here. By the way, I should rename these, and I'll do that here just in a minute here. But let's go ahead and create some more dimensions. So I'm going to go ahead and throw these up here, and then I will apply the annotation view to all of them all in one shot. So we get that. Let's go from here to here, get an annotation there, and then we'll go from here to here. Something like that. Alright, so now I want to right click. Let's set this to the top, this guy here, this guy here. Sorry, this one is what I meant to select. And what other ones did we want? There was one more, which was right here. We'll set this guy here to the it was actually this guy right here. So we'll set this guy to the top, something like that. And now when I go to my top view, we get our annotations, and we can just move them around to wherever we see fit. Something like that. Probably should add another one to create that spacing there, but I think we get the point, right? Where we can actually use DimXpert to dimension those out. Now I could have also used sketch dimensions to do that. It's just personal preference. I think using DimXpert is the right way to do it, but there's nothing wrong with using sketch dimensions to do that as well. Okay, so we got that guy there. Let me go ahead and hide these points. And let's update this guy here by right-clicking and recapturing. Cool, there we go. And let's go ahead and rename these as well. So this one here, I'm going to go ahead and call this the front. I'll call this guy the right or left. I probably should have put dimensions on there as well, but we'll go ahead and leave those out for this purpose here. This guy here, let's call it ISO. And then this guy here, we'll call it cutaway. Something like that. Alright, just so we can reference them later and know what those guys are actually referring to. Okay, so I think I'm pretty much done here at the part level, and so now I want to go ahead and push these guys to both the 2D drawing and then after that to inspection and DimXpert. So let's go ahead and push it to the 2D drawing for now. I'm going to go ahead and just save it, and let's go here to then create the drawing. A3 is good, we'll use that. And then here is the part you want to look at. So when you have these, so the view palette, and you have all your views, and you got and because we named these, they come up so you can actually tell which one is which. But you want to make sure that you import annotations. If you bring something in, you can always right-click, or you can always click on that, and you can go ahead and you can import annotations here. It's just easier to do it right off the bat. So if I say import annotations, one. Also keep in mind, anything you add at the drawing level just lives in the drawing. Anything you add at the part level, as far as the 3D PMI goes, then that's data that you can use in other outputs. So let's do the front view, drag that in, bring all our dimensions. We got too much there, we'll clean it up. Also, I don't want to do the auto start projected view for this particular case because I want to bring in the annotation views that the 3D views that I made in the part level. So we'll go ahead and uncheck annotations because I just want to bring in left without bringing in all of the design annotations with it. And we'll do a top, those auto align. If you did bring it in and you accidentally broke that auto alignment, you just right click, go to alignment. You can do like align horizontal by origin, select the view next to it, and that will align it that way if that did break. Now let's bring in the ISO. I'm not going to bring in the annotations for it, I just want that 3D model. I do have that sketch shown, so you'll see that you can see it here, but we should be able to right click and hide it. Yep, just like that, and we can hide those points. Okay, and now let's go ahead and hide that. I think I can group select them like this, make it a little bit easier to hide. I'm going to just do it one at a time. Something like that. And I think I got what I'm looking for, just like that. So there we go. So we got our basic 2D drawing. And so now I can either push this to the standalone inspection tool, or I could kind of prep that in SOLIDWORKS Inspection, which is what I'll do at this stage here to kind of just package that up for the standalone. Okay, so this brings us to the next stage of the presentation where I'm going to take this drawing, push it to inspection, and then I'm going to take the 3D model with the 3D PMI and push that to model-based definitions. Keep in mind, everything has been driven so far from that 3D PMI at the part level. So let's jump back into PowerPoint. And the next step I'm going to do is push that 3D PMI to the inspection standalone through the SOLIDWORKS drawing. So I've got three ways that I could potentially do that. One is just to save the SOLIDWORKS drawing as a PDF file and then open that in the inspection standalone application. Or I can save it out as an inspection standalone project from the drawing level, or I can take it one step further and prep it for the standalone application right within SOLIDWORKS using the inspection add-in. And by doing so, I'm just going to create some basic build characteristics for the drawing and just analyze some of the data that we already have. Also, we can use information from the part, so like custom properties, we can push that data into inspection, which I'll show as well. Then taking a little back step there back to the part level using DimXpert, the PMI data, push that to a model-based definitions 3D PDF file. So we're going to go and publish that model-based definitions 3D PDF directly from SOLIDWORKS, and I'll talk a little bit about the template control there and how you can actually make everything look exactly how you want it. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump back into SOLIDWORKS so we can show the inspection portion. Okay, so I'm going to take this drawing and push it to inspection. Now, if I was doing this for real, I would have put quite a few more dimensions on here using DimXpert, maybe some sketch dimensions at the part level. Also, you'll see the cutaway view is here. I could bring that in and show those dimensions as well, but I think for presentation purposes, we'll just move forward with the drawing that we got. So what I can do is I can say new inspection project, and I'm going to prep this now for the inspection standalone application. So new inspection project, got quite a few different templates, industry standard templates we can choose from. I'm going to just use my default one that I have here. Also, I'm going to take a step back, and I can't quite make this yet, and I want to point out why. Well, I mean, I could, but it's just not as intelligent as it could be. So if I said part name, you'll see custom properties for this guy here right now is blank, just not filled out. If you do fill out the custom properties for these components, it makes this step much easier, where you can just select that metadata that pushes it into the inspection project. It also imports it into the model-based definitions project, and so you don't have to enter that data in more than one location. So let's go ahead and show how that's done real quick. So, and I'm just going to do a couple. You basically go to the part level, you go to properties, and you just add them here. And so, for instance, if I said, part number, I don't know, I'm just going to type in an arbitrary number there. And so that's the part number. Let's go ahead and say the part name, which we could add it here if it's not already an option. It's probably in there, but I'll go ahead and just add something. We'll call it part name. It's going to be a text field, and I'm going to call this, well, it's a really bad name there, so we'll call it a handle. And let's add one more, maybe a revision. So let's go ahead and do revision. You'll see material was in there as well, which is a real nice one to add. And it will say rev E, I don't know, something like that. So now that I have data at the part level, now when I go back to the drawing, let's back up here, create a new inspection project. And now I say the part name is, and it's right there, handle, and it'll populate that field. So it pulls that intellectual data from the part level, which is really slick. You can put it there and you can populate other outputs later on. And so again, adding stuff to the part level and just utilizing that over and over. Part number, go there, and let's do that, and then revision is here, which is right there. Alright, so we got that data. We'll say next. Now it's going to say, what do you want to bring into inspection? Now I have noticed that a lot of dimensions that the add-in for inspection in SOLIDWORKS, it just doesn't recognize yet. So, which is fine, because this is really just preparation for the standalone application. So we'll grab what we can, and if anything is ignored, we'll just add that into the standalone. And so we'll say we want to include everything. By default, you can say anything that's only marked for inspection, or anything that's reference or basic dimensions. So I'm going to go and say include everything. And then this here, this is the auto explode for the it's the extraction criteria for notes. And so if I had some extensive notes, this would list out how it's actually identifying those and ballooning those individual notes. And it's a little confused by looking at it. We can help you out with that if you have any questions on how to break that down and extract those notes exactly how you want. For GD&T, I don't have any here, but we'll go ahead and include that as well. And we'll just say next. This is our tolerances. This is our saying we can adjust our tolerances. I'm going to go and leave it at the default. These also can be changed in the document properties, and so it would change them here. I'm sorry, to change them here we would change the template, but then when we push these out to inspection standalone, we can adjust it in the document properties there. Alright, so let's go ahead and hit the checkbox. We'll accept that. We get our balloon. It did miss that one. It's fine. We can do that in the standalone. Also, this one's a little bit off, so I'm just going to go reposition, kind of clean them up a little bit. You can kind of move these guys so it's obvious which dimension they go with, something like that. Okay, and that's it. And that's literally, it's now prepared for the standalone application. So you'll see that the time spent at the SOLIDWORKS level, if you have engineering, making the drawing, and you have QC saying, hey, or QA saying, hey, we're going to, need our inspection, need to start the inspection project, just a minute or two in the application at the engineering site can prep that for the QA process. I'm going to go ahead and export this to a SOLIDWORKS inspection project. And I'll just go and dump it in the folder that we're using right now. Okay, so let's navigate back to that folder. Okay, so we'll go ahead and navigate to that directory, and we'll pull up that project that we exported from the SOLIDWORKS inspection add-in. And so you'll see that the builder characteristics have been populated from the information from SOLIDWORKS. We have the properties as page properties as far as the part name, part number, and revision data that we had entered into the custom properties of the part. that then populated in the drawing and then pushed out to the inspection standalone application. You'll notice here that I can also modify this if I wanted to. So I don't have to use that data. I can modify that if I so chose to. Going to the characteristics here. So going to the characteristics here, we got our dimensions, and we have that one that was missed in the SOLIDWORKS application. Also, if there was any other dimensions, we could just go ahead and balloon those right here at this stage. If there was nodes or things like that, we could balloon those as well. Okay, so going to the characteristics here, let's go to dimension, and let's pull this dimension right here. You'll see I didn't even grab it all, I kind of missed it, but it's intelligent enough to know exactly what it was supposed to be, what I meant to grab there, which is 0.55. Let's change that to inches. It's a dimension, automatically identified that it's a diameter from the diameter symbol there. Took our default tolerances, actually pulled those tolerances off of the actual text there, and gave us our upper and lower limit, just like that. And so there is our inspection standalone project, and we'll go ahead and call this good. There's other data I could pull into the page properties and whatnot, but what I wanted to show here is that we can take it from here, kind of clean it up, dimension any dimensions, or add any dimensions to the bill of characteristics that we need. Perhaps bring in CMM data, and so if you have a CMM machine at this stage here, we can actually import that into the project. So that's in the final inspection packet. And then from here we can say, hey, we want a 2D PDF of this, and so we'll go ahead and save this out as the balloon drawing, like that. And then also, of course, the Excel output. Let's go ahead, I'm going to choose my default for the image captures. That's going to capture images of anything that I used OCR on, as well as with the upper and lower limits. So we'll go ahead and export that, and we'll say, yep, that's a fine name for it. And we'll export the Excel packet for it. And you'll see that there's form 1, 2, and 3. So we got our corresponding information that we're pulling from our part level, the page properties, or I'm sorry, the part properties. And then for the form 3 for our bill of characteristics for dimensions and tolerances. And then here, if we did have CMM results, that would automatically fill out. But of course, this is just Excel, and you can go ahead and you can type in whatever you wanted, right? Something like that. Okay, so that is the inspection output part from the DimXpert data. Now let's jump into the model-based definitions. Okay, so jumping back into SOLIDWORKS, let's go ahead and open up this part. And you'll see the part, our 3D views. Of course, all the data is there that we've done previously. Now let's push this to model-based definitions. And this is the easiest part of the whole process, right? Because it's all the setup, and all this setup is done outside of model-based definitions. And when you purchase the add-in for SOLIDWORKS for model-based definitions, it gives you the ability to, one, export the DimXpert data and the 3D views as a 3D PDF. But really where the control comes from is actually modifying that template for that 3D PDF. So here I can just go ahead and say, yeah, I want to export the published 3D PDF. You'll see the template here. There's actually a template editor, control. And there's quite a few templates that come with model-based definitions. We have quite a few different starting positions for this. And you know, if you want to lay it a little bit different or something like that, just choose a different template. But once you get in here, it's super simple to kind of control to whatever you want it to do. So like these custom property fields, we just go ahead and we assign those to different properties from the SOLIDWORKS components, the properties for those parts. Or we can go ahead and we can key in anything we want here. We can also create text fields for like notes. And so this one right here is an imported note placeholder. So that's if you had like a text file or something, you can import that. Or if you had any kind of tables within the SOLIDWORKS assembly, the SOLIDWORKS drawing. For assemblies, if you do have model-based definitions, you can pull from the assemblies. Everything we've shown in this example is from the part level, and so that would be if you have any tables from the part level, maybe like a cut list or something like that, we can pull data into the template from there. But we can also do a custom text field, so we can actually enter text in the PDF and use it for like sending notes back and forth. Every one of these are just windows, so I can say, hey, I wanted this a little bit smaller. I wanted a, maybe a different independent viewport here or something like that. And so it's just all these different images that you can just, or they're like images, they're placeholders. And then once you set them in the template, you save the template, add your own logo, whatnot. Then when you publish as a 3D PDF, it's going to stick that 3D PDF inside this template. Now I'm not going to save this template, just because I was just kind of playing around in there. I'm going to go and use the default one. I want all of these views, so I want to make sure that I select all the views here for the views that I'm going to export. And accuracy, we'll set that to maximum just so we have the best quality. The only time you don't want maximum is if you have like a really complex part that you're just trying to reduce the file size on for that PDF output. By default, I just leave it at max. Then let's go ahead and say we want to attach a step 242. So this is kind of a newer format. It's actually a step file that has PMI data in it, and so you can use this in various ways. It's more for visual reading of that PMI data, but basically there's a lot of players out there and stuff that can view that step file and rotate it in 3D with the PMI data. My opinion, you have the 3D PDF, it kind of does the same thing, so that's more for like future use, once that can actually tie in with like CMM machines and CNC machines, which is a little ways out there. But, it's just another one of the situations where the software is a little bit ahead of the time of the hardware, but it's a good thing to have, and that will be very powerful in the future. Okay, so let's go ahead and hit the next button. I want to show how we can pull in that data just like in inspection. We can pull any of that custom properties into model-based definitions as well. So a lot of this stuff is blank, right? Because I just don't have it filled out. But any of this stuff that I can actually pull the data that I did put in, let's say file name, that's just going to be the SOLIDWORKS file name, but I could change that to like the part name, handle, that data that I put in there, drying date, let's say, whatever, we'll just pull in the revision for that or something, I don't know. Just for example, to show how we can pull data into here. So let's go ahead and close it, and hit the checkbox, and then I want to go ahead and save this guy to this directory. We'll call this 3D PDF, and it's going to go through, you'll see it on screen here, I'll kind of flip to the model, it's going to go through all of those 3D annotation views that I made, and it's going to import all of those into a nice PDF package that is of course 3D, so we can rotate it. One huge benefit of this is you can view that 3D PDF on many different devices. There's 3D PDF readers for both Android and Apple devices, and of course PCs and Macs. There's players for that, and Adobe Acrobat Viewer is well known for being a player for 3D content, and so we can of course use that. But here, let's go ahead and show we have our 3D model, 3D space, put all of our 2D stuff on there. So it's just a real convenient way to convey this information outside your company to anybody with, a 3D PDF viewer, which is very, very common, and able to view all of this data in 3D. And it's a PDF. Everybody can read a PDF, right? So this can be printed from the PDF or viewed digitally and then rotated, and just you can get a lot more from the model this way. Okay, so let's jump back to our PowerPoint slide here and just basically do a little recap. So what we did is we had our SOLIDWORKS CAD, and we just did and that was just the 3D model of this part. Did a real basic DimXpert introduction, how to throw dims onto the model. If you're really struggling getting dimensions in the exact location that you want it, tricks that we've come up with is to do a sketch with dimensions, use that little asterisk point sign to get it points exactly where you want, so you can attach your dimensions, and then you just want to make sure that sketch is shown so we can actually bring it into the drawing and also bring it into model-based definitions. You can also do a configuration of a cut view, so you have nice sharp edges you can attach to, and then use that in your 3D views as well. Annotation views, those are those hidden planes in the model where you can actually attach the views. Basically, it says, you know, where do you want them displayed? If you're in a front view, you can't really show any dimensions from a top view because they're going to just be flat and they're going to be too thin to see. So you want to make sure those annotation views are set to the front if you're in the front view. The pushing PMI to 2D drawings, that's just taking all of the data that we added to the 3D level, all the PMI data, and then showing that in our 2D drawings. That was as simple as checking those little import options so you actually bring in the right data. And I think the last thing here, for the DIMs are live in the model. That's pretty important to understand, that when you put something at the part level or the model, the 3D level, then it's accessible at many different outputs. We showed a couple here, but there are many different ones out there. Maybe ones that you don't even know about, that, you know, 10 years from now you'd be like, wow, I'm sure glad I put that data at the model because now I can use it here. Opposed to, oh, that data only lives in the drawing and this other application doesn't read the drawing, so the 3D data doesn't have that information on it. So starting to add your information at the 3D level now will help you in the future, and that is the way things are going. So it definitely will help, even if it doesn't help you today. The SOLIDWORKS Inspection and MBD portion of this, it was just basically pushing that 3D PMI from inspection add-in to inspection standalone. So it was at the part level, push that to a drawing, push that to the standalone application. And then of course from there publishing out the balloon drawing and the Excel-based inspection report, FAI report. Then going back into the model for DimXpert. So we have the DimXpert data on the model already in PMI, the product material information format data, and we're going to use that in model-based definitions to basically push out a 3D PDF with all that data on there. So it's a nice small package that you send to somebody and they can rotate the model, they can see the dimensions and get everything that they need to know. Okay, so just wrapping this up here, if you are interested in more videos from Hawk Ridge, including this one that will be uploaded to YouTube here within a couple days, just check out our YouTube site. It's Hawk Ridge Systems. Type that into the search field and it will pull up it should be the very top one on the list there. Or you can key it right in, which is just youtube.com/user/Hawk Ridge Systems, and that will take you directly to our page, which has all of our videos that we make on there. The next webinars that are coming up, that's going to be May 9th, 11 o'clock a.m. It's going to be real-time mechanical collaboration with SOLIDWORKS PCB. And then the one after that, it's going to be May 16th, the road to validation. It's going to be part 1 of a multiple part series for SOLIDWORKS flow simulation. Okay, well, thank you everybody for joining us today, and I hope to see you soon, and have a great rest of your day, and we'll have this video uploaded to our YouTube site here within a couple days.